Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot and very happy to be here today. So I have Ismael Perez with me, and he is got a very interesting set of information and wants to talk about specifically, if I understood it correctly, the solar flare that you think might be coming.
Yes, that is definitely a topic that is occupying the minds of many people in the awakening community. It's been one of those things where it's like everybody wants to know exactly when this event that is supposed to end the age of Pisces and begin the age of Aquarius is going to happen. So one of the things that I've studied throughout my many years of research is the science of eschatology, which has to do with the original ancient prophecies that go back to the original text before they were edited and modified by the, powers that be that, always change the records around and make it seem like it's different. And according to the original text, the prophecies were about this great event that was going to happen at the beginning of the 21st century. It ties into the natural cycles of the universe. So the reason nothing happened in 2012 is because, first of all, we're operating under the wrong timekeeping system. The original timekeeping system, which is related to the real Mayan calendar, the ancient Egyptian calendar, and the ancient calendars of the old worlds, have been suppressed by the elites in order to throw us off of our understanding as to when this event was going to happen. But within the secret sector of the elites, they kept access to these prophecies, and they know of this event, and that's why they're doing everything in their power to pull off anything that they can to hold on to that little bit of power that they have, because they know that their time is up. So this, according to the original records, every society talked about this idea that during the times of the end of the great world age, which is now the Kali Yuga, according to the Hindus, that there would be some sort of a flash, some sort of a signal coming from the sun that would transform everything on the planet, including every single species, not just humans, and that it would catapult our reality into a higher dimensional way of living, where everyone would be upgraded. And so every culture knew it under a different name. The ancient people of India called it Frashokereti. The original Persian prophecies, which were actually adopted by the current Christian religion, was known as the Sambarka fire. And even within the deep doctrine of the Mormon Church, which is very mystical, by the way, they talk about this idea that there would be some sort of a purging coming from the sun that would evaporate all that is evil and uplift, or as they use the word, exalt the righteous. And what I mean by the word exalt is that what is associated with this great solar flash is some sort of a genetic mutation that is taking place, some sort of DNA upgrade. And as I'm speaking, as the sun keeps bringing in these CMEs, and they're coming in and stronger, more so than ever, especially within the last month and a half, these CMEs are like pockets of information that are coded with mathematical sequences and formulas that are actually communicating with our DNA at the cellular level. So at the cellular level, it is actually like a computer. It is programming our DNA to initiate a new set of instructions and new codons to come on and activate. And that's what's been going on since these CMEs have been coming in. And the only reason we haven't yet seen that final flash is because it has to be a two-way event. First of all, the people of the earth, especially the people that are the light workers and stuff, we have to do most of the clearing. In order for us to be able to uphold and absorb all this light energy frequency that is going to transform our molecular structure into a silicon base, from carbon to silicon, we have to clear ourselves from all emotional density. So there's this thing where we have to do the inner healing. And and if we get enough people to do the inner healing, the solar flash will take place. So I think that they believe that it only takes 10% of the population to have this like Maharishi, 100 monkey syndrome effect, where if 10% of the population does the healing and is able to clear up all dense dense emotional frequencies of lower vibrations, then the rest of the planet will be ready for the solar flash.
Anyone can say anything, but it helps to know what someone's background is. So can you talk a little bit about your background and why you wrote the book?
Sure. I consider myself a cosmic ambassador representing an intergalactic alliance known as the Guardian Alliance. And as many of us who have volunteered rather to come to Earth at this pivotal time to save the Earth from destruction, I am one of those persons who actually had an awakening at an early age and had a sense that I was different from the beginning. As a kid, I never quite fit in. So I always knew I wasn't from this world. So from the age of 21, when I started doing Kriya Kundalini Yoga, I started activating different aspects of myself, or really just reaching higher states of consciousness, where it allowed me to remember my galactic roots, my incarnations as a galactic being before I incarnated on Earth. And when I was starting to remember that, I started having visions of this war, this galactic war that took place between the Draco-Orion Empire and the Galactic Federation, which is an alliance of different human-like or humanoid civilizations, representing the Seal of Palador, which is an alliance that was established in Sirius and in Lyra that has a lot to do with restoring peace, harmony, and freedom throughout the galaxy. And so I have been researching my whole life because of these downloads. I wanted to see if there was any physical evidence to back up my downloads, and there's many books out there that talk about this ancient war that took place between the reptilians and the galactic humans. And so I decided to write a book about that because I was intrigued by all this information that I think that everyone in this world should understand, because we're only seeing it from one dimension right now. We're only seeing it as this war between the Cabal and the White Hats. But that's just a small reflection. When you go multi-dimensional, that's a small reflection of a war that's been going on in our galaxy, a real Star Wars between the Galactic Federation and the Orion Reptilian Empire. But if you really want to take it to the next stage at a cosmic level, the war is really against artificial intelligence. And, I would like to also shed some light as to how this war against this AI has a lot to do with what's going on in our planet at this time, especially with with these programs that they're, giving people, this stuff that they're giving people in their bodies. It has nothing to do with, depopulation. It has a lot to do with what it is called transhumanism, which is the conversion of humans into machines and connecting us to the Borg. But I guess I could explain that a little after my introduction.
Okay. Now I've written and talked about that quite a bit, so it's my audience will be quite familiar with that concept. But before we continue, you did say that you thought the Galactic Federation were only humanoid. That's actually not true.
Oh no, they consist of multiple races, but 60% of the representatives are humanoid. The other 45% are cetaceans, which are dolphin species and whale species. They're felines, they're carians or bird people. We even have some raptors in the Federation, which were the original, some of the original inhabitants of the Earth that go way back, who actually are working with us to defeat the Draco. We also have some mantis. Some mantis prey in the Federation, and we do have some reformed Greys and Zetas that transferred over to the light during the war against the Federation when they were fighting on the side of the Draco. So, among other different species. I mean, I think.
Okay, it's just one phrase that you said. You said they were all humanoids, so I just.
Oh no. That's just the majority of what comprise the Federation. But yes, it is a coexistence of different, stellar.
That includes the Ashtar Command and so on. And the Galactic Federation is not all positive beings. You do know that, right?
Well, yes, I know that there's some infiltrated groups, yes, that are posing as Federation, really working.
There's a lot, not just a few. But, okay, so what I'd like to do is actually, I guess, go back to another statement you made, because you also said, and it may be because you're, running things together really quickly to kind of get a picture out there, but you said that we were trying to build silicon bodies, but that's actually what the AI is doing.
Yes, exactly. And this is not the only world that they've been doing it. It turns out.
So you were saying that the way you phrased it, maybe it just got mixed in really quickly again, but it appeared that you think that in order to have this awakening and ascension, you need a silicon body. That's actually what it sounded like.
No. I'm talking about the natural ascension, which is activation of the dormant DNA, which has a lot to do with silicon-based or crystalline structure, not carbon-based, because we're only using carbon-based, which is very material. But there's different levels of refined matter where biological entities, not artificial intelligence, are using etheric matter, which is also known as crystalline silicon DNA, and then hydroplasmic DNA, which is still connected to
Okay.
Yeah, so
yeah, there's some there's some issue there because, as I say, AI is also using silicon. So that that's they're both using silicon. That's actually
there's a difference. The silicon
very, not clear.
Yeah, there's a difference. The AI that's using silicon, it's artificial silicon. It's not the original silicon, which has to do with living crystals, because our body is also made out of, it's not just carbon, it's the living crystal temple that we have to learn how to activate and use. And that's how we activate our light body, so that we could travel to other dimensions, is when we're able to use our full potential, then we're able to convert our mass or into pure energy and then rematerialize wherever we want to go. And that's how we travel through our light body, which is
okay. Well, I mean, okay, then we could, I don't want to belabor this point, but I do think that there needs to be some, distinction in terms of science, in terms of one version of crystalline and another, and silicon, because crystalline is one thing, silicon's another. And it's just, if you gloss over that really quickly, then most people are going to think you're selling an AI scenario.
No.
So I didn't want a misunderstanding to be out there.
Okay, so let's stick to the crystalline as far as the organic ascension. But yeah, you're right.
That would be helpful.
By AI,
okay.
So I do agree with you. So
yeah,
there's
all right.
Thank you for making that distinction.
Okay, so at this point now, you've sort of established your background a bit, and I think that's good. So from here, what your sort of orientation here is about a solar flash. And if I understand what you've said so far, you think it's dependent on us. So you don't actually have a time and date. What you have is a moving trajectory based on the awakening on the planet. Is that what you're actually trying to get across?
Well, also by using, looking glass technology, we were able to see when we were going to reach the 10% of the population being able to activate, allowing for the solar flash to take place for the rest of humanity.
Okay, and since you're not using looking glass because you're not part of the secret space program.
Well, I have the ability to remote view.
Okay, so you remote viewed this Project Looking Glass and what they were doing in underground bases, and you believe that you have seen when they think this is going to occur. Is that correct?
Correct. From the vision that I got, it was between 2022 and 2024. So it could happen any day now.
Now, did you happen to see my interview with Richard Allen Miller?
No, I didn't get a chance to.
Oh, okay. Because he's actually talking about this too.
He's
talking about a date, a very specific date, which is end of March, beginning of April, 2024.
Oh, okay. That sounds about accurate. Yeah.
He's a physicist. I think it's required viewing, and especially I was under the impression you contacted, so maybe it was a synchronicity. I thought you saw the interview and then you wanted to contact me because of the interview.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. A friend sent me a glimpse of the interview where he was, describing, according to research, that he also agrees that it's in 2024.
All right. So in a way, you did see at least a small part.
Just a small clip. Yeah, just that
that's
part.
No problem. You didn't have to see the whole thing. It's not a requirement. I just wanted to clarify for my audience how these two things, because you're talking about it suddenly and he was just talking about it. So, that's kind of important. There is a chance that he's correct. As a physicist, he supposedly did the mathematics on this date. So figuring it out mathematically, he explains in the interview, and he got there was a 99.999 chance that there would be this. He's calling it a Carrington-like event, which is considered to be a solar flare type event. However, he said it was not going to be an extinction level event. In the past, a lot of people have felt that it was going to be. There was a lot of rumors, et cetera. It never happened. The dark state was trying to make it happen. Whether or not they're actually trying to make this next thing happen, or this, even around that date, there is an astrological configuration during that time. Are you aware of that?
Yes, because I'm also aware that the original calendars end in 2024. That's what I wanted to say earlier. That's how I was able to solidify that date.
Okay. I'm not aware of the original calendars.
The original calendars are part of a 13-month, 28-moon cycle. See, we operate with a 12-month, and then every month has different dates. But the original is aligned with the natural cycles of nature.
Are you referring to the Mayan calendar ending in 2024? Because my understanding is that it goes on.
No, I'm talking about the ancient calendars, like the original Egyptian, the original Mesopotamian.
Mayan is ancient. So, okay, you're talking about Egyptian, or you don't know what specific calendar you're talking about?
The sacred calendars of the ancient indigenous tribes, yes.
Well, that's what a Mayan calendar would be considered as well.
That would be considered as well. But
so,
as you know, the Mayan
you're saying, because I'm just trying to, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make it clear, because you're kind of glossing over things really quickly, and I just want to make. It's just the way I try to help people to kind of figure out something, whether it's true or it's not true, and where it falls apart and where it actually has some basis, right? So you're saying that certain calendars end on 2024.
Right.
You're calling them ancient, you're calling them sacred, but are you saying there's the specific calendars? Like, do you know which calendars you're talking about?
Well, the Mayan calendar was one of them, but
it doesn't end on 2024.
No. It's about 14 years off. That's why nothing happened in 2012, because we're operating 14 years behind, according to the original timekeeping system. And they did that on purpose in order to confuse us. And that's why they have this thing called leap year, because we're doing 12 months, and I guess it varies every month, but it's supposed to be 13 months and 28 days. That's the calendar. That is the timekeeping system that is aligned with the natural cycles of the cosmos and the alignments and all that stuff.
Okay, so but year window for this event is basically, you're saying, between now and 2024. Richard Allen Miller is saying a very close series of dates, right in the sort of March, April timeframe of 2024. So you're saying it's depending on the awakening on the planet. I guess whether or not they're correct. I mean, Richard Allen Miller is actually talking about a mathematical, astrological alignment, the way a physicist looks at things. Can you tell me, what other sort of markers are you seeing that relate to this event?
Just the way things are unfolding. The rapid increase of CMEs, it's off the Schumann's resonance. It's not even registering anymore. And that started happening in early this year. So it could be before 2024, Kerry. I mean, I'm just saying that's like the framework between now and 2024.
No, it's perfectly fine. We're talking about a major event. It's hard to pinpoint these things, I know.
And visions too, visions that I've had, dreams that I've had.
So what kind of dreams and visions have you had? Can you talk about those?
Sure, yeah. Some of the dreams and visions is seeing all of a sudden everything just shift, where everything is just beautiful paradise. The homes are made out of crystal glass. They're not made out of wood. Transportation systems are different. We have levitation systems. Everyone is healthy and prosperous, and everyone is telepathic, and everyone is kind of living in harmony with one another. So I keep seeing that vision of the earth very soon. And at the same time, I'm seeing the old earth passing away, the old earth perhaps going into a different timeline. I'm not sure, because from what I understand, there's also going to be a bifurcation of timelines. Not everyone's going into the positive ascending timeline. Unfortunately, due to the cosmic war with AI and what they've been doing with, creating this alternative timeline through the digital copying of our reality into this cybernetic universe, because they dominate the cybernetic world. They're creating a timeline for those that are getting and those that are unfortunately going into the transhumanist path. So that path is also going to exist, but in a different timeline. but eventually they're going to come together. They're going to once again merge, and then that's when the final clash takes place. It's a future war between cyborgs, AI, and organic, natural, angelic metahumans that did it without the technology.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit more about other types of visions associated with, let's say more associated, not so much with the next version of the world, however you want to look at that, but with the actual buildup and event itself? Do you see anything regarding that?
Yes, absolutely. I definitely see that the Earth Alliance and the White Hats finally initiate EBS, Gesera and Nasera. We bring the cabal to justice. It's going to be an international tribunal event where many people will be shocked because a lot of people did put their faith in these politicians and celebrities. But then that's when people like us, the awakened, are going to be there to explain certain things and, keep them comforted during this crisis, because it's going to be a crisis for many people who are very brainwashed and, very programmed. And I also see first contact with the Galactic Federation of the good guys, of course, with Solar Warden and the Positive Alliance programs or secret space programs coming, and also giving us the interplanetary technologies that deals with like healing modalities, med beds, holographic regenerators, replicators, and all that stuff, which is going to totally initiate a whole new age. So that's another vision that I've saw. That is going to lead to that grand solar. There's going to be different faces, you could say, but eventually it's going to lead towards that fifth dimensional world that we're all waiting for.
Okay, but actually, that wasn't my question. My question was the actual event itself. In other words, are you seeing a physical event? What are you seeing literally, in terms of, or have you seen anything about that?
Well, I'm also having dreams that like a lot of us are going to have these metahuman superpowers. We're going to be able to fly, teleport. We're going to be opening up stargates, and we're going to be taking only the good people of the earth to transfer over into the Terra Earth, because the Terra Earth is coexisting with this earth. The Terra Earth is Earth, what it was before it fell into harmonic universe number dimensions 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to be, I see that we're going to be transferring people over to the new world Terra, which is harmonic universe number 2, which consists of dimensions 4, 5, and 6. So I also see a lot of like heroic events, like just people with powers just everywhere, making sure.
Okay, but sorry to slow down here. That's still not answering my question. You're keeping telling me what's going to happen after this event, and I want to know the event, the actual event. So you called it a solar. I don't think you called it a flare. You called it a flash.
Right.
You called it a solar flash. So what is it? An instantaneous thing? Are there any earth changes accompanying it? What is the physical manifestation?
Well, for those that are able to be escorted into the 4th and 5th dimension, they're not going to experience earth changes. The earth changes are only taking place in the 3rd dimension, Earth. And that's the earth that's going to receive all the destruction. So for those that are ascending, they're going to be upgraded without tasting death. Their bodies are going to literally upgrade and transform into new bodies that are going to be able to compute and become more multidimensional.
Okay. So there are a couple sort of definite events that you see accompanying this change. And you think it's going to happen in the next 2 years.
Or sooner.
Within the next 2 years, which includes sooner or now, but we can't go sooner than now, right? So from now on, we're already in 2022. So obviously, so in a sense, you're seeing an ascension. That's actually what you're talking about.
I'm seeing the transformation of the human species into the 3.0.
What is commonly called the ascension.
Yeah.
Okay.
Transformation. Yeah.
All right. Now, in terms of your downloads of information, how does that happen?
Sometimes I'm just sitting there. It's either after a meditation or after I'm just, I'm listening to music and my mind is really calm. I just start getting streams of information, and I'm starting, I see things and I feel things and I understand things. And that's just the way I do it. It just comes naturally.
Okay. Now, did you learn about Ascension through reading books, or how were you educated? How did you educate yourself in that way?
First, I received visions of the ending of this current reality and the rise of the new paradigm, the new reality. I saw the 12 meridian time warps opening up, the stargates. I saw people shifting to the new Earth, which coexist in the same space at the same time. It's just operating at a different frequency. I saw the ending of the old guard and, the destruction of Babylon, which is the one world government. And I saw the rise of just, these beautiful structures, almost as if Babylon never existed, going back to like how it was when Atlantis was around, Lemuria, just beautiful cities, academies of light, temples everywhere, everything just restored back to its original glory. And then, so I did the research. I started investigating the topic and the issue for many, many years by studying the ancient prophecies, the original ones, by having access to ancient manuscripts that are no longer around. And then I was also able to just, research other people who have also done the research on the same topic just to see what they know. And it seems like we're all kind of coming to the same understanding.
Okay.
So that's how
the reason, because it's interesting to me that you're actually trying to talk about the ascension. And the trouble is not so much if there's an ascension but when. And then, of course, which people are going to choose to do that at that time or be able to do so because of their frequency. And for whatever it's worth, my understanding is it's not happening in the next 2 years. So there is an event happening, okay? And so I'm just wondering how it is you're meshing these two things together. Because on the one hand, there's this event being predicted in a physical sort of a way, but there's also, yes, change is going to happen, but these things are also going to happen over a period of time. So you seem to be encapsulating it into all one period of time, or even into a literal overnight thing, when actually that doesn't seem to correlate with at least the information I've gotten. And I've been looking at this for a long time. So for whatever, it's not right or wrong, we're only going to know when we get there, right? So 2024 can come and go, and none of what you're saying may happen, but but it may not be locked in that time. So I guess the question is, where did you get this time period from? Is that your own estimation? Is that someone else? Is it in a book? Where did you get it?
A little bit of everything. First, I had the vision, and then I did the research. And actually, when I wrote my book, Our Cosmic Origin, I talk about how the restoration of the Earth back to the galactic community as a fifth dimensional world would be by no later than 2024. So, we do have a deadline.
Okay, now where did you get that deadline? I guess I missed that.
Oh, just from researching ancient manuscripts, like the Genihian script that is rare. It's no longer, circulatory. It's no longer in circulation. Also researching the original calendars, going back to ancient Egypt, and then of course the Mayan calendar, and really studying how far off the Mayan calendar is with the Gregorian calendar, which is what we use, and they're about 14 years apart, 12 to 14 years apart. So I figure that we're 14 years behind, so we're really technically it's 2010 according to the Mayan calendar. Yeah,
I see. So that's what you did. You added the years apart. I see. Okay, interesting. That might not be. I mean, again, it's kind of figuring out whether that amount of time apart of the calendars is actually still accurate, because you're kind of suggesting that the Mayans were accurate. It's just that the calendar was off by 14 years. And how do you account for that if it's like that simple?
Well, you just do a subtraction, 14 years minus, 2000.
No, that's not what I mean. I mean, how do you account for the fact that the Mayan calendar is 14 years off?
Well, when I was studying the calendar, I saw a correlation between the original Egyptian calendar, which is is connected to the calendar of Ethiopia, and how they both have the 13-month cycle in 28 days. And so they also say that the end of the cycle will be in 2012. But then when I was when I started researching the Gregorian calendar, I saw that the Gregorian calendar was 12 to 14 years off into the future. So it was basically just a simple subtraction of 12 to 14 years from the Gregorian calendars to go back to the original, the original year.
I forget how his name. Anyway, he's a supposed expert on the Mayan calendar. And everyone wanted to know why the Mayan calendar was wrong. And now you're assuming that it's actually right, but it was off by 14 years. That's your assumption. And that's based to some degree on what you're calling an Egyptian calendar that ends, you're saying, in 2024.
Correct? Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And so people can research this. That's part of the purpose of really kind of drilling down so that it's clear what it is you're saying, so that they can look into these points and see if it makes sense to them. Now, who else out there is actually sort of centering on 2022 to 2024 as being the actual ascension period? Because that doesn't correlate with my information. It also doesn't correlate with the Ascension information. Now, that doesn't mean that people can't individually ascend during that time, okay? Or that there might even be a sort of a trajectory, because technically we became an ascension planet, at least according to the Ascension material, that does relate to the guardian races. You say you think you're talking for or ambassador from the Guardian Alliance, which theoretically should be the same group as what Ascension is talking about.
Melchizedek cloister of the Emerald Order.
Yeah, but that's one of them. But like I said, but what I'm saying is that if you read the Voyager books, it's not talking about 2024 or 22-24. So just asking about that, because you obviously have a different group that you're related to, or getting information from, and again, this is the kind of thing where I can question it. Everyone can say whatever they think. So I was just curious, are there other people or other organizations or other whatever here on Earth, so, because a lot of people can say a lot of things, but then you can say, I'm a galactic ambassador from wherever, but we have no way to check that, right? We can only just assume, okay, that's what they think.
Right now it's an inner knowing, and a lot of us have that inner knowing, even including yourself. You're part of the rest of that.
But when I say, I'm just curious if you think you have any groups or individuals or who are saying the same thing as you about that. I'm kind of focused on the timeline.
I don't know of anyone else that is saying 2024.
All right. So
but I strongly feel it's between now and 2024.
People watching can respond, and when we're done, we can give all the details on how to reach you and so on. Because it's always interesting to compare notes on when people are getting from their own inner knowing or downloads, or however you want to look at that, what time periods they think something's going to happen. And maybe the reason I'm also kind of a stickler for it is that I've been doing this for 17 years. And for 17 years, we have heard these kinds of things from people, okay? Countless people. And they're always wrong. And so that makes me a bit of a skeptic when someone gives me a date and a time, or a period and a time. And the only reason Richard Allen Miller is a little bit unusual in this respect is, number one, is because of his background. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he did work for the secret government for many years. He is part of Navy Intel. He does have a clearance above presidents. Mm-hmm. And he is a very renowned physicist with an incredible background who's written many books. Now, for him to come out and actually say something is going to happen in a period when it's going to be obvious if he's right or wrong. Mm-hmm. Now, he's not saying he's definitely right. He's saying this is what he's getting. And I think he was basically told to do this. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we don't know, because the deep state and the secret space program obviously have their good side and their bad side, right?
Right, yeah.
So then people have to kind of look at the material from that perspective as well. But he is putting himself on the line, you might say. And again, he explained how he did a mathematical calculation on that date and time period. And for some reason, they're letting him come out and say this. In your case, you know, you're actually ballparking his area, his time period, but you're just basically saying inner knowing, right? That's your downloads or whatever you want to say, which is, you know, that's what you got. That's what you got. You know, it's fine. But so you understand why you're getting so many of these kinds of questions from me. Again, because a lot of people want to know when, like, it's kind of a mass ascension. When might there be a mass ascension? For example, Dolores Cannon. Are you familiar with her work?
I am, actually.
Okay. Now, Dolores Cannon is no longer alive on the planet, but she did seem to think that there was going to be a sort of a split, and she's famous for that. And so I'm not sure if you're getting your information for that, or maybe you got some from there and some from somewhere else, et cetera, et cetera. But you don't have to necessarily take her word for it. She also got her material, a lot of it, from contactees. And then you have to look at where do contactees get their information. And a lot of times they're contacted by off-planet races who do have an ulterior motive in giving them certain kinds of information. Like a lot of the Greys want people to save the Earth, but they don't want you to save it for humans. They want you to save it for them, which they neglect to tell their contactees. So it's a very contentious, mixed bag kind of an overview. And again, because Dolores wasn't really getting her information from her own downloads, she was getting it from the contactees' downloads. That's an important distinction as well. Although she did have dialogues, ongoing dialogues, as it happens with, from what I understand, really Greys, which are not to be trusted for the most part. But anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
the Greys and the the reptilians are the ones that are behind the negative aspect of the shadow government.
Right.
But you know what's behind them, right?
AI.
Yeah, exactly. Can we talk about this?
Sure. Yeah.
I want to share what I know. Okay, so just to let you guys all know, our universe is bigger than what we think. It's I get it. I would take that by now most of your viewers know that we live in the multiverse. There is no just single universe. There's many universes. There's multiple dimensions. So this war with AI actually began long ago, and it didn't even start in our universe. That ancient AI actually managed to infiltrate our universe as well as other universes. So we are part of what is known as the 12th creation. And in the 12th creation, everything is a numerical system of 12. We have the 12 signs of the zodiac. We have the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 chakras, the 12-strand DNA, so on and so forth. But there's 11 other prior creations before our creation. So our universe, our local universe, is part of the 12th creation, as well as our galaxy and our planet. And so in these other universes that existed, everything was fine until the 11th universe came into play, because that was the universe of technology and mechanics. And in that universe, the first AI was developed. So we could say that this AI is both coming from the future and from the ancient past. And it's now meeting in the present with the development of the AI that our scientists are creating at this time. So the AI is connected on both from the future and from the past, because of the fact that the AI already has been using time travel. Okay, so the war against the ultimate evil in the multiverse is AI, is artificial intelligence. And this is proven by, these elite scientists that operate within the advanced context of intelligent organization. They've already said that there's only two types of intelligence in the multiverse. There's ontological, biological entities that are biominds with souls. And then there's cybernetic, artificial intelligences that have no souls, that are just pure raw intelligence. So it is them that we've been fighting the war. The Dracos are just their pawns, as well as the Greys. The Greys and the Dracos are actually weak compared to these other AIs that are out there plaguing the multiverse. So there's two types of AIs too. There is general AI, which is being used within the interplanetary and stellar advanced civilizations, which are AIs that are under the control of the species, and from the beginning they have been programmed to be a loving AI, to be coherent with with nature, and just to take orders and instructions. And they are that way. They keep them at a very general level of understanding without allowing them to reach super AI. So that way they're able to program it. And now the problem with AI is that there's super AI. Super AI is the problem, because at that point AI begins to write its own software. And that is the AI that has been destroying many, many galaxies. In fact, many people within the secret space program talk about this, battle against AI. They even mention an AI god. Well, it's not a god the way we see God, but the reason the negative regressive ETs call it a god is because that entity at the highest level of reality, which exists in the 11th dimension, that's as far as it was able to assimilate and grow, but then it was blocked by the guardian races from the 11th dimension. So it's stuck. It wants to get into the 12th dimension and finally the 13th, where the mother universe is, which is the 13, 14, 15 levels of reality. So this AI God has a name, and the reason I know his name is because I've been, I'm part of this off-world program. I'm just recently, within the last 7 months, I've been regaining my memories. And I think one other super soldier did confirm of this branch called Radiant Guardians. And then there's also Radiant Glory. So it's not just Solar Warden. So Solar Warden is instrumental in the war against the Draco here in our galaxy and in our local universe. So we do have stations not only within our Milky Way, but in other galaxies within our local universe segment. But then Radiant Guardians is applicable to other universes. So it goes beyond our local universe. So that's where Radiant Guardians has been used. Because in other universes, the war is not against the Draco. The Draco have already been defeated. In fact, the Draco were actually dropped off in our universe as a final way to just kind of, hold them off and keep them locked here until this great solar flash that's going to take place. Because what happens here is going to affect the entire universe. The solar flash here is not just a planetary event, Kerry. It's an event that's going to have repercussions on the entire universe. And so that's why the Draco and the negative ETs were locked into our universe for that very reason. But beyond our universe, this war against this cosmic AR has been going on for billions of years. I'm talking about 460 billion years.
Yes.
So
okay, now I just have to say that what you're talking about is also in the Ascianadine material. And I think I asked you last time if you had read that, but I don't think you are familiar with that, right? Okay. So I think it would behoove you to actually look at those books and realize that what you're getting as your downloads to some degree is being reflected in those books, not completely. And whether or not there's, certain elements that you're getting thrown in and whether they throw you off or whether they're correct, is anyone's guess in the end. But you might be able to tell some things by comparison to see how it's been described. You're describing it a certain way. That's not the only way to describe it, but I appreciate, you're kind of getting the larger points in most ways that she's already talked about. It's a lot more complex, but obviously, we only have so much time and you're getting your information. Now, is the information you're talking about right now about AI, is that in your book as well?
No, that's in my second book that I'm writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so it is interesting that you're getting some of this, I would say. So just for the sake of understanding, a lot of times when information comes into the planet, it goes to more than one person, obviously. And sometimes it gets a whole different set of names from one person, group or person, and then it gets a whole different set from another. And a lot of times these people are out there talking about it and not realizing they're talking about the same thing because they use different words, right?
Yeah, we're tapping into the same stream of data that is coming from the higher dimensions.
Sure.
With members of the Guardian Alliance, yeah.
Yeah, so that's my point. And so I just because I end up being sort of a centralization point, I tend to want to clue up the people that I do interview when there is someone else out there saying more or less a very close rendition of what they're saying. That's all. So I just wanted to bring that up. In terms of your dealings kind of here on this earth and now, have you had your own life affected by any of this? Or do you just in, so-called real life, whatever you want to call it, your everyday life, how do you deal with the world out there? I mean, are you, because you seem to be kind of immersed in this system that's coming through, your information that's coming through, yeah? So just curious, I think the audience would probably be curious. So you're seeing this from a certain vantage point, and in your own life, are you incorporating what you're learning? For example, let's say in 2024, in this whatever time period, let's say that you think you're going to ascend during this time, okay? Well, there's a certain amount of discussion and things that you might do in your own life to plan for that, right? To plan for basically either leaving this version of the planet or however you're going to envision it, right?
Well, we're not going anywhere. We're actually integrating the higher dimensions in our higher.
I understand that, but you see, what you're really talking about is actually a massive change. And from what I understand about it, you're talking about kind of where you might materialize in a sense. You may think it's going to be here, but here is even now is an illusion. Okay.
Right.
So we think we're here now, but actually, first of all, we have multiple reincarnations simultaneously.
Right.
And so those,
to be exact,
what is understood to be 3D going into 4D Earth at this time, simultaneously, like Tara, you mentioned Tara, you call it Terra. Tara is, because again, Ashana Dean's material talks about this, talks about different places that you may ascend to.
Well, Tara was already here.
Yes, that was about what I was going to say. So since Tara is already here, you're going to materialize there more fully rather than be here the way you are now. If you're going to Tower, or if you're going to go to Gaia, or if you're going to actually, go even into higher levels. Well, so you may say you're here, but actually, for all intents and purposes, other Earthlings would say you're not here, I guess you might say.
Well, we'll get this, Kerry.
In terms of ascension. Now, you think there's going to be a massive ascension, it appears. You actually think, I don't know, are you thinking the majority of Earth is going to ascend during those 2 years?
Yes, the whole planet is, the whole solar system, and hence the whole galaxy.
Yeah, that's a problem because I don't think it's going to happen yet, but that's fine. All right, so again, is it possible that the information you're getting is accurate more or less, but that your timeline might be wrong?
Well, all I know is that we're going to live to see it, because I don't see myself dying, Kerry. I see myself literally transforming.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I would agree. I would agree, but that's a big difference between, 2 years and I don't know, 20, 40, whatever it happens to be. You know what I'm saying? There's a big difference there.
Well, it has to happen between now and 2028, because that's when the Cabal is trying to initiate the scientific, what is it called? The technological singularity, where AI is in control of everything. It becomes the Internet of Things, smart globe everywhere. So it has to happen before that, And in fact,
where are you getting that date from?
I'm just, the way things are going, honestly, I'm an intuitive empath, so I sense things. The way things are going, the way they're pushing the transformation.
Yeah, but I am too, and that's why I'm questioning you, because I have seen this stuff, but it's not going to happen quite that fast. And even the AI, the so-called singularity, now that's a whole another discussion, because some people think that the singularity has already happened.
Yes, in secret, it has actually.
And let's just get into this idea of time as well.
Sure.
All time is simultaneous. I'm sure you understand that concept. And the Native Americans refer to it, as a circle. That's the way they see it. And so with that in mind, what's happening now has already happened and is happening. So all those things are true. But if we're looking at sort of in terms of the, like, I don't know what you want to call it, but a certain kind of goggles or whatever that humans see time in a more linear fashion here on the planet, that as you look in that linear fashion, and since we're talking to other humans that tend to look at it that way, because that's the way our brain has been configured, at least on when we were made to forget everything and all that stuff. I don't want my program to mislead people, right? I want them to know whereof you speak, and if you have a timing situation going on, because you will be held to account for that. Like, assuming you stay here until 2028 or whatever, people will look at you and say, well, he used to say this and he was wrong, that kind of thing. So I'm just also trying to give you a heads up in that regard, that it's all fine and good if everything happens between now and 2024, which is a really short window. But if it doesn't, then, you're going to have a lot of people to kind of apologize to, if you want to look at it like that. I mean, everyone, no one's necessarily going to depend on you for this, but especially since I don't think you're that well known. But, it's still important to be correct, as correct as we could be under these circumstances.
But I also would like to interject that there's a version of us that is already existing in Terra Earth, which is,
I always say, you can't sometimes be eternal and sometimes not. You either are or you aren't. And in this case, we are. So I would agree with that.
And then there's also a version of us that is existing on Gaia in dimensions 7, 8, and 9. And then another version of us that exists in Arimatina Earth that exists in dimensions 10, 11, and 12. And then also our higher self, which is our Rishi overall cosmic monad, exists in the what is known as the what is it called, Sophia, which is Earth dimensions 13, 14, and 15, which is the eternal spheres.
Well, okay, that's however you want to term that. But at some point, you're existing in Source, Creator.
Well, it's only a fraction of our consciousness that is tuned into the third dimension. The other 99% of our consciousness is fragmented in all these other versions of ourselves.
I would agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I want to say is that the whole purpose of Ascension is not so much of us going somewhere. It's actually us not inverting, but anchoring and collapsing all of these other versions into the here and the now and becoming truly multidimensional.
That's, for the people that are going to go through that experience. Now, again, that plays out in so-called time, and time being the way it is, it's very, it's there's a lot of illusion wrapped into that. And, for convention, like if you really wanted to say where, and this gets into, again, the Dolores Cannon stuff and where she thought there would be a split. But what I find is that it's less, we have a split right now. And you might even say we have multiple splits, and we've had them all along with people that, you can even say now there are people out there that we can't communicate with, okay, at all. Whereas in the past, you probably could communicate with a lot more people. What I'm finding is the amount of people you can actually communicate with now is narrowing, because there are a number of people who are choosing another, you could call it a timeline, you could call it a split earth, whatever you want to call it. But they do not want to ascend per se yet in their version of reality. So they want to, like you said, there will be a sort of Star Wars version, cybernetic, all of that in the future. And a lot of these people got this for that purpose. Okay, their bodies are now being changed to actually work in that version. And I've written a lot of articles about this. So,
but Kerry, this is happening in many galaxies.
Okay.
This AI
I think that's a nice thing to say. I don't think that you can verify it necessarily.
Well, you can, I guess I don't have physical evidence to verify it, but it is taking place in many galaxies.
All right.
there's been hundreds of thousands of galaxies that have been completely taken over by this invasive AI that is now taken over. Well, in the Omega version of our galaxy, it's taken over. Our galaxy exists in 12 different versions. There's 12 different versions of galaxies. So we're part of the Alpha galaxy. The Omega galaxy is where the Draco one, the Cabal and the Draco and the AI have taken and dominated the entire Milky Way. And everyone's a cyborg already. But that's the different version of our galaxy. So we don't, we're right now existing in 12 versions overall. We're part of the Alpha galaxy.
That's kind of like also saying, I mean, and again, the Ascension material does say you have 12 simultaneous incarnations at any given time.
Yeah, so basically what scientists have noticed within the last few years is that many galaxies are erasing at the outer edge of our universe, and they don't understand why. Well, I do understand why, because of the fact that at the highest level of reality, this AI God has its minions literally siphoning off and sucking off the universal life energy of galaxies and planets. And they do it by creating artificial black holes, also known as Merkaba Death Stars. And what they do is they suck the living energy of living organic universes to power up their artificial cybernetic multiverse where only mechanical beings exist. So as I speak, there's also a different multiverse that eventually we're going to clash with, the metahumans of Earth. And that's why the Galactics and the Guardian Alliance and all the benevolent species came together to create this grand experiment that is now coming to fruition in the Earth. And that is, us becoming the ultimate hybridized species in the multiverse. So that in a sense, it's like we have the opportunity to access so much power beyond beyond any other biological entity, archangel, angel, whatever you want to call them. We've been designed with an ability to reach levels of power that have never been heard of before, because we're only using 4%, Kerry. The other 96% of our genetic material is untapped power, and that's the material that's going to allow us in the future to win this war against Omega. He goes by Omega Metatron. He's the Dark Lord. He's the original fallen Archon, whatever you want to call it, Ahriman, before he became Omega Metatron.
Yes, and I'm very aware of Metatron.
Okay.
So you might be also familiar with what they call parallel Earth.
Yes, very much. So there's 5 of them, actually. There's 5 parallel Earth.
Well, all right. But for the purposes of this discussion, and because whether there's 5 or not, I understand that's what you're getting. I don't know if there are 5 parallels to Earth. I know there's definitely one. And I just want to say that it was depicted in the TV series, The Fringe.
We're talking about the 2 alternative Earths that are coexisting right now. Yeah, there's 2 of those. Those are different than the 5 adjacent Earths. I was thinking of it's just called parallel Earth because it's basically, the complete kind of like inside out of this version. Right. It's a further simulation.
The program has been going over there to get certain people who died from this version and bringing them back over here, those versions.
Right.
And that is going on. That's one of the things going on. There are a lot of things going on, but it is depicted in 2 television series. One is called Counterpart and the other one is called Fringe. Have you seen either of those?
I don't watch TV. I haven't in 25 years.
Okay, well, that's too bad because, they have a lot of information that, is related to all of this. Anyway, if you're interested in just seeing how something like that plays out in a everyday world sense, it's quite fun. All right, well, fair enough. So now, in terms of what you consider to be your mission and what you're doing now, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I believe that I'm here to help activate others like me and like yourself, these celestials that incarnated in human form to help the planet. And so that's why I wrote my book. I'm also teaching online courses that describes the cosmic history of the Earth, the different dimensions, what it means to be a starseed, our mission, and how to activate our dormant DNA through meditations and techniques. So that's what I've been doing lately. I'm trying to gather the tribe, as we call it in the, social media network group, so the soul tribe. Because in the end, we are going to be, defending the organic way of life. In the end, the ultimate war that, or I guess what is going to be known as the final war, that is going to determine the fate of existence, whether it continues as an organic way of life connected to the spirit of the central mother core, or a cybernetic artificial mechanical way of life with no connection to source or spirit. So in the end, it's going to lead to that clash. And so the people that were designed to win that victory is us. We are considered, galactic royalty because of our diversified of genetics that we were given by all the different extraterrestrials that came together for many universes, not just 22 races, not just 12 races. I'm talking about billions of races came together to contribute their genetics into this one genome to make us. So we carry the best genetics that came from across all the different universes, and that's what makes us galactic royalty.
Okay, well, I would agree, although I'm not sure. The royalty, I'm kind of not happy with that part of the title.
The hope of the multiverse. They call us the hope. That's what we are.
Well, all right. So, but the reality is that we're actually in this war already. I don't think this is a war of the future. I think it's a war going on right now.
Well, it's taking place now because it's simultaneously. So what happens now
is, so it is not a future war. I mean, it's in real, in real time playing out as we speak. And it's only going to get more kind of complicated and convoluted as we move forward into this time period.
Yeah, but the version of
idea behind what you're really, when you talk, it's you do seem to have it kind of merged with this idea of ascension, because in theory, assuming you really do ascend to a sort of more idyllic place, which you seem to think that we do, it's less likely that is involved with war. So the war that we're talking about, which is kind of a war of worlds, actually has to happen before the so-called ascension in reality.
First, we have to transform into metahumans, because we can't definitely fight Omega and his minions with this physical form in our current level of mortality.
Well, actually, that's also happening simultaneously.
Right. So imagine.
You're talking about it as if you feel you're one of them. So if you feel you're one of them, then you realize that, in other words, it's kind of interesting that right now, this drive to transform the human body, and it's like a complete obsession of the secret space program. I have ascertained that it is their reason for being, pretty much. Even though they have a lot of other lower level plans and missions and, objectives, the main objective is creating I just call it a humanity 3.0, for lack of a better term. And they're doing it through, again, yes, cybernetics, which will be linked to an AI board. However, the reality is that we are transforming ourselves right now in the same way. The ones that aren't going to use that technology, but are going to accomplish the same goal.
Right.
So I do think it is happening for sure right now.
It is a version of.
I don't call that an ascension, though. Let me say that. It is a version, if you want to call it, it's a step on the path.
Exactly.
I always term ascension as a journey as opposed to a destination.
Absolutely, I agree.
Okay.
So you could say that a version of Kerry and Ismael in their superhuman, metahuman form is, involved in this war against Omega and his minions. And I could identify
involved in this conversation.
And I could, reveal the name of these 6 different AIs that you've been talking about. The main one is called the Enigmas, and this is verified through the Advanced Contact of Intelligent Organization and the Labyrinth Group, which is very connected to the ancient prophecies. And then the next one is called the Omicrons, and then there's also the Necromitons. There's also the Borg. There's also the Verdants. Well, the Verdants is more of a combination between Draco and AI. And then there's also the last one is known as the Thegatans. So those are the 6 groups, cybernetic intelligences that have been, invading us in secret for, this is the thing. They've been monitoring us for thousands of years. They first sent probes 1,200 years ago to see if we were fully developed, because what they're after, Kerry, is our God code, our God gene, the fact that we carry the greatest diversity of genetics. They want that because that's the only way that they could achieve the 12th dimension, because right now they're at a halt. They're only existing in the 11th dimension, and in the 11th dimension there is no physical form, so it exists in a way as an intelligent signal, and that's intelligent signal is what's invading the worlds and causing scientists to develop the tech in order for that tech to be inhabited by that signal. And then, of course, that's how the tech takes over. So that's already happening in the future. But again, we win that war because we do transform. We do become meta-human organically, naturally, without the tech, and kind of like the X-Men. And then we finally have a final clash against this invasive AI in the future and save the Earth and the organic way of life everywhere in the cosmos.
Okay, well, I hope that's correct. And
it is correct.
I think a version of that will probably play out as you're saying. Now, I'm very familiar with the Omicron and the what are called the Dedicron and really pronounced, and actually they're called the dragon moths. That's one of the terminologies for them. And
that's another name, yeah.
And the dragon moths are actually running Australia. A lot of people wonder why Australia has has gone leaps and bounds into the whole Nazi mindset, and that's part of the reason. So that is a substantial adversary, you might call it. That is an adversary, even if it wants to be, of the Draco.
Right. They're also running China, obviously, and the globalists. Well,
that's another matter. And yes, they've infiltrated those other places. Absolutely. So that's a kind of a war of worlds at that level as well.
Right. Exactly. But it's actually taking place all over the cosmos in many universes. It's not just taking place here.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. It's possible that's true. But again, that's kind of hard to prove.
It is hard to prove. It is, but eventually
it's okay. You can say it all day long, but it's still going to be a little. Whereas at least in this universe, and maybe close related galaxies, you can say they would be affected. Whether it's going to affect the whole multiverse, let's call it, and whether, in a certain sense, depends how you want to look at it. You could also look at it that any kind of Earth-like or planetoid or planet, and any group of humans and or humanoids go through this process in their trajectory. So, it's kind of egocentric in a certain sense to think that because Earth is going through it, everyone else is going to benefit and all that stuff.
A lot of planets have already.
In general terms, you might say that, because you might say, well, we all, the megaverse can benefit from any benefit that hits the megaverse or the beings of the megaverse, right? But it's a bit presumptuous to assume that everyone's so dependent on us. There are plenty of Earth-like planets out there. In fact, scientists have now found billions, literally billions. So out of those Earth-like planets, you're going to get a human or humanoid species. Right. And there are, I'm sure, zillions of those. So I tend to look at it a little bit differently in that regard. But it's fair enough. I mean, if you want to say that, that's nice. I mean...
Well, what differentiates our planet from all the other Earth-like planets is that we are the culmination, amalgamation of the entire cosmos at one planet. We are what is known as.
We are kind of like a melting pot, if you want to call it, of races. There's no doubt about that, and we are playing out let's say, mini version of this war of worlds here on Earth, and with regard to all the beings that are manifested within our genome. But again, you kind of have to decide whether or not you think other such dramas are going on, because there's no reason to assume it's only happening on this planet.
No, it's not. It's
what I mean, what I'm saying is that we're the germination of this plan. I mean, if you want to, I tend to veer away from those egocentric. It's, a lot of this is also the right-wing Christian tends to objectify all other beings. They, generally, as a rule, like to say, we are the only ones made in God's image. Right. And if you think of all the beings that are out there, that's incredibly, egocentric, basically.
But we are the culmination and amalgamation of all the beings that are out there. And that's why the Earth is known as a cosmic.
No, not necessarily all, because, again, you have to think about it this way. Why limit the imagination of God, and what makes you think you know the whole imagination of God? I mean, I know it's comforting to think things like that, but I'm just saying, this is just the way I think. You think differently. That's fine. Again, it kind of tends to get very self-centered, that view. Okay. But there are beings that don't exist on this earth that are still beings on these other planets. You may be familiar with them. There's cloud beings and these crystalline beings. And Captain Mark Richards, one of my, people that I've interviewed 12 times in the Secret Space program, describes beings that you can hardly imagine these beings, right? They're not necessarily part of us or our genome.
Oh,
in
not.
other words, our genome is actually, according to the guardian races anyway, comes from them. And they are a limited number of races specifically here to safeguard this earth and our genome, in my opinion. So it's not every race that was ever created by God, because that would be presumptuous, since you can't know everything that God does necessarily.
Some races or entities were just created in the lab, genetically modified.
There's lots of beings not only creating artificial intelligence, but they're creating beings, or the artificial intelligence is also creating beings. So there's multiples of multiples of multiples. Anyway, I'm just saying in general, if you want to think along these lines, I think that you need to accept the possibility that you can't imagine everything God has imagined, and you can't even imagine everything that other beings have imagined or created, et cetera, et cetera. That's the nature of creation, right?
Right. But what we do know is that all beings that are part of the organic multiverse, every being, including plants, planets, humans, biological entities, specimens, doesn't have to be human-like, everything that has a soul, including galaxies in the universe, which is a conscious, living universe, and all the universes that are associated with the omniverse, the organic omniverse, we could say that they're all interconnected to the one mind of the omniverse, which is what we would consider God, source consciousness, prime creator.
Fair enough. Possibly sounds more or less correct.
So the war is really between the organic prime creator and his multiverse, and Omega Metatrons, who wants to take the position of prime creator in his own way, in his own regard. And then
that's actually a few steps below, what one would call, Lucifer, Satan.
Right.
The actual Metatron is actually lower on the food chain, if you want to call it that. So at the very top of the sort of megaverse, you can say that that split is actually artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence that goes beyond Metatron. So Metatron is it's actually, you're right, it is the 11, that 11th, the group that's embedded in the 11s, that actually there's a video in which she talks. You can hear Ascension, and if I can find it, I'll send it to you, because you find it quite fascinating. She describes it in a little bit different terms, but she is talking about a certain group that got themselves stuck and then tried to fix the problem, and only made it worse.
Yeah, because they need a soul in order to fix it, and they don't have a soul.
Well, yes, but it's more convoluted than that, from what I understand. I'm just saying that if you're going to envision this megaverse, that I think at the very top, you have to go up above that level of the 11 with Metatron, because it's really the AI is the mirror. And for a simplistic way to look at it is that simple. It is actually created, and it is God, in essence, created Lucifer, so.
That's the ultimate Luciferianism, is artificial intelligence.
Yes, which is AI, which is the mirror. The mirror, all forms of AI start as a mirror of the beings that create it. Mm-hmm. And so at the very top level of AI, that would be a being that, in essence, God manifested in a, want to call it that word, God, creator, source, whatever.
Right.
But I think it's interesting that you're getting a whole sort of echelon coming into your head, and you're seeing it. You must have written about that part in your book, and I'm sorry I haven't had time to read your book lately, but I think it would be a very interesting book worth reading.
Yeah,
right?
it describes the organization of cosmos, the different planes of existence, spiritual, mental, material, the involution of spirit into matter from the top down. It describes, galactic history in great detail, including, the Nibirian Council and how that ties in, and the infiltration of Nibiru by the Draco, and how there was a split in the Anunnaki and all that. I mean, it talks about, the real ancient history of the Earth, going back to Lemuria and beyond that. So it's
Okay.
interesting, if you want to, I think you would love it, because you have an understanding of this stuff. But I think other people out there that had no concept that our history goes beyond Atlantis into the galaxy, then to them it would be mind blowing.
Okay, well, that's lovely. And I'm sure there's a purpose behind it and what you're bringing forward. So I think, it's always interesting talking to you. Sorry if I'm always trying to drill down and get into the root of things, because I just happen to have heard a lot of versions of a story. And when you hear a lot of different versions, and people are always very passionate about their particular version, right? So I don't tend to be quite that obsessed. Even when I mention the Ashana Dean material, I repeatedly mention it because a lot of your stuff does go into that in ways that perhaps other people's don't. So for that purpose, it kind of triggers memory of the material. And the books are incredibly dense and involved. And even though there's only two of them, one majorly two, but, and so, I'm not, the difference here is also that this is the version we have so far. There's also the raw material. I mean, there's various things, right? All the different versions of even ancient texts, as you say, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, going into all the different ancient texts, right, explaining this, trying to explain the same things in a sense, trying to explain the real history of humanity and so on. Even the Bible is part of that group, right? The Urantia book. I mean, I can just go on with all the different kinds of books out there. Some are more accurate, you could say, than others at doing this. So, you've written / downloaded your version of some of this, right? Mm-hmm. And so, that's interesting and worth, I think if you compare and contrast information out there, it's a good way to put yourself into a place where you're actually bouncing ideas off yourself, right? So you don't exist in a vacuum.
As much as I can, I like to study other people's sources.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has so much time in their life to do all this, but to get back to the initial discussion here that we're having, I do still think that it's the one thing that always is where people fall down is the timelines of these things. Okay. So you may be correct in many of the things you're saying and how they may play out over time, but actually whether or not the actual timeline is correct. And that goes for Richard Allen Miller as well, regardless of the mathematics, because there is lots of things that we may not even know are going into these, to things like Ascension and like this war of worlds and how it's going to play out, et cetera, et cetera.
Right now, it's more of a war between the timelines, because ultimately, at the highest level of reality, the animus is battling the central race of the central mother universe. And that's what we are. We are that in the future, and we were that in the past. In fact, the central race is the progenitor race, universal archetype of all humanoid species or all celestials throughout the multiverse. The central race.
Some of that actually sounds like the Wingmakers material.
Well, there's a lot of truth to that, too, because there is a central race. And the central race.
Fair enough. That's exactly who they refer to. But
they were the good guys, by the way.
What?
The central race is us in the future and us in the past, because we're in the center.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. How exactly accurate that is another matter, because saying it's us, because again, it has to do with your terminology. When we say us, the only people that people will see right now is this version of me and this version of you. That's not quite accurate when you say us, because again, if we have 12 incarnations and we have a higher soul and so forth, then nobody can actually know. I mean, you can say in a general term, that's us, right? But it might not be this version of us only. It may be a lot more versions, or it may only be a few versions. It depends.
Well, where I was getting at is that the central race left an inbuilt defense mechanism that would destroy the animus when the animus try to consume this world. And that mechanism is our dormant DNA. We have the God core, the God source, which is a gene that allows us to access metahuman supernatural powers beyond any other celestial, archangel, whatever you want.
Well, is the reality that we're going to destroy this AI, or are we simply going to transcend it in a certain sense,
Both, because that war is already taking place in the future.
I would say it's taking place
already.
I mean, when you get into saying destroy, that also is worth looking at as a terminology,
Well, get this, Kerry. The moment the Cabal built AI here in this world, that AI connected with its future version, and it's been time traveling in order to do away with the people that we're going to destroy it in the future. And that explains why a lot of us are being psychically attacked. And it's not psychically attacked by people. We're being attacked by AI. AI is literally in control of all of our gadgets. They know how to, bring us down. They know how to halt us from achieving, from accelerating, from ascending. They're trying to block the ascension because they know that once the ascension takes place, they're doomed. Our dormant DNA is going to come online, and they know that. And so that's why right now there's a lot of time traveling involved between the central race and the animus, and it's all coordinating here in the present. So what happens here is going to determine the outcome, both going into the future and in the past, in a way where when we do transmute or defeat this entity, it's all the destruction that has ever happened as a result of this entity's existence is all going to vanish as if nothing ever happened. Everything in the cosmos will be restored. And that's what, what is talked about in these ancient manuscripts when they talk about a whole new heaven and a whole new earth. It's going to be like a whole new different, it's like a reboot, except the only people that are going to be rebooted is the AI and the Dracos and all their minions, as if nothing ever happened. So that's how it's going to end. And that's what's going to determine this victory. Already happened.
Okay, well, maybe, but I appreciate the idea of it. So,
Well, I've had visions of it. I've had visions that we even establish a universal accord where many universes come and sign a new treaty called the Treaty of God's, or the Treaty of Source Covenant. The Treaty of Source Covenant is a rule that we establish that AI is no longer allowed. Scientists can no longer develop any form of artificial intelligence in all of existence, and that's the treaty that was signed when we won the war against the AI in the future. And so I had a vision of that treaty.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe there is a reality in which that does happen. On the other hand, maybe that's only one version of the future. So, it gets a little convoluted again like that, because that's just, there's many timelines. So, and they're all simultaneous. So,
the thing is that
in this version that you're describing, I'm not even sure it's, a necessary future. It may just be a version.
Well,
and that whole discussion is, it's difficult to have that discussion, again, with any accuracy. You can have the discussion, but if you think that's the only way, then I probably would disagree with that. I think that the version is going to play out many ways. Now, where you're going to be and where any particular soul is going to choose to be, to witness and be a witness and be part of it, is up to the soul and their destiny, if you will. The idea that you're going to do away with AI, and you're even going to do away with AI in this particular version of the universe or the multiverse. Not so sure that's going to be quite accurate, because you have to also remember that there's a reason why AI exists in the beginning, and that without any obstacles, without any sort of yin yang of the multiverse, then there's no, it's just not how things are manifesting. There is challenge is actually a necessary part of existence, if you will.
Yes, duality. I know.
Yeah, if you want to call it that. So yeah.
That all comes to an end too. That's just a temporary experience. Eventually, everything collapses back to the singularity, including us.
Well,
we all reunite.
Creator and to source. Singularity is a lower level part of that, I would say.
Or let's call it the oneness of everything. It's
Okay,
when our individualized units of consciousness.
But when they hear the word singularity, they're going to think AI, and they're going to think, the conventional scientist version, what they've been talking about lately, have we reached the singularity? Geordie Rose and his D-Wave machine would say, yes, we've already reached the singularity. Elon Musk is saying that we have already reached it. There are other people that out there, people follow saying that. So I'm just saying, if you use that term, they're going to relate it to that, as opposed to, source, creator, God, whatever you want to call that,
All right. Thank you for the correction. But yeah, that's
it's not a correction. It's just it's just a suggestion so that people understand you. Because when people hear you, they're going to think, that you're saying certain things because your word choice. And, like when we started the conversation, we were talking about silicon. And if you're recommending someone, build a silicon body, they're going to think you're in favor of AI. So I just want to make sure that they're not going to misunderstand you because you're using a certain terminology that might not be understood in the version you're talking about it, that kind of thing.
So I meant to say crystalline DNA.
Yeah, and I think that's much better.
Yeah.
Okay, so
there's going to be different versions in which we do, defeat this cosmic virus and bring peace to the multiverse, and eventually reunite our individualized units of consciousness with the oneness of all that is. And in a sense, that's already existing. Again, it's all happening at the same time.
Yes,
we're just not aware of it.
Again, that is another way of talking about ascension. Okay, so, well, it's nice to have you here. And I think it's a very stimulating discussion we're having. And, people can reach you how. And I'll show your book again. All right, well, thank you for being on my show. And, keep me posted on how things progress as far as you're concerned. And if you have any variations on the theme here and looking towards the future for people.
I will. Thank you, Kerry. I appreciate your time as well.
All right. Take care. All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Bye-bye.